inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. Hero Quest. Now with 2 new adventure packs, the legend grows.
Hi, welcome back to Not Your Mother's Hobbies. Today, we're continuing our Hero Quest journey with the Abomination. These are the redone, I guess, Fimir miniatures. They couldn't use that anymore for Warhammer copyright reasons, so we got these fish guys, these Sahuagin, more D&D fantasy. So, let's get into it. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is the fish skin. I got this idea, again, from inspiration, looking online, and I found that Rush the Wash had a cool approach to it, and so I kind of turned it on its head a little bit in some areas to do my own way, mix it up, and I'm going to show you how I do it. If you want to see how he does it, link in the description below, and let's get to it. So reason for us start here, for a lighter skin, we're gonna put it over everything. I know it looks like I'm avoiding sections, but I'm not. It's just because we're working with contrast paint, it's better to work in little blocks so that you can, you know, if you're not going fast, you want to do little blocks, and so I'm sectioning it off, and that's to avoid tide and streak marks and stuff like that. If you can break the mini up into little pieces when you're using contrast paint, then you don't have to rush and go super fast if that's something you struggle with. So you're going to cover absolutely everything to do with the skin, even the chitin or chitin parts, the armor plates, the big rough sections. You could do this guy in any color you want. Just do the bottom skin as a brighter or lighter tone than you're going to do for the chitin. I chose blue just to break up the color palette of our monsters. I know the artwork is more green-gray, but we got a lot of green. I wanted to break it up a bit and do something different. So here we go. We're going onto the chitin. I'm using Pterodon turquoise for this. It's just a kind of greeny blue. It's a little bit of a darker blue, and that's to go over the already painted blue chitin. It's going to mix, it's going to blend, and it's going to sort of go well together. You could use any other sort of darker blue color, but I wanted this sort of greeny blue. We're just going to go over all of the little chitin plates on the body. So that's the thighs, the shins, the shoulders, the forearm, and his head, his little spikes, the fin spikes, all those parts that would be chitin, armor, platey, skin stuff. We're going to do this sort of darker color. And remember, if you're using a different color for your guys, just use a darker color towards that color. Or you could even experiment and mix with a different color over top and see how they work together. Whatever you want to do. I also chose to do the little gill flaps down here. So you can do those too, or you can pick them out in a different color. But when you're done, it's going to look like this. And we're coming in here with that dollar store white. Just for a dry brush, I'm putting it exclusively on the plating, all the chitin plating. And we're just going to pick each of those armor pieces out and just give it a real edge dry brush. You can dry brush over, normally crisscross wise, pick out lots of little details. I do that, of course, but I'm mostly focusing on the edges. I want a really, really bright edge more than anything. And that's because we're going to be staining this. This is going to be a real quick and easy way for a highlight. We won't have to go back in with any other paints, and it's going to give us a really cool highlight. So once that's done, I'm coming back in here with our Pterodon turquoise, and this is a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 mix, something like that. I didn't really keep track, but I honestly could have gone more water to Pterodon. So it would be 2-to-1 for water over Pterodon, or 3-to-1 water over Pterodon. I probably could have pushed it further to be like a 4-to-1. You want it to be like a real glazing color, or a real glazing consistency, because you want to see the white through it, and you don't really want to darken what's already underneath it. I could have pushed this one further, and honestly, in another miniature that I've done, my test miniature, I did push it further, and I liked that one better. I thought it had a lot more like life to it, more detail to it. Not that this one's bad or anything, it just came out a little darker than I wanted. So you could push that glaze consistency a little further. And there you go, you can already see it. Look how bright that is. Alright, before we do anything else, we have a lot of cleanup to do. And it might seem like it's going to be a bunch of work, or very difficult, but we don't have to be too accurate with this kind of stuff. It's barnacles and eyeballs and stuff, for the most part, over the body. So you can be a little messier. It'll all blend together on this guy and look like mottling of the skin if you get it, your cleanup a little too far-reaching, whatever. It's not the end of the world. It'll sort of mix together and look like the barnacles or the starfish are affecting the skin, and merging it together in a way, right? It's all going to stain together, mix together. So we want to do the barnacles, the lips, the mouth, the eyes, anywhere that you got blue that you didn't want to get, so on the loincloth or the weapon, etc. And then we want to do claws and the webbing of his feet and hands. So anything that's not supposed to be blue, you're just going to come in and touch up, cover up, and prepare for the next part. This part is really interesting, and this is one of the cool ideas that I'm borrowing from Rush the Wash, which is to give it a sort of different colored underbelly, right? He was talking about real fish that are deep down underwater and how they have a brighter belly on the bottom of them to trick predators. It helps camouflage them from below because it'll look like the sunlight from above. So what we're going to do is, you can do this with a dry brush if you want. I just speckled and spattered it on with my big rough brush that I use for almost everything. And I just came in there and I stuck to one direction and made swiping motions to give it like a texture to it. Rush the Wash, he did way more accurate little brush strokes and got a ton of texture in there. However you want to do it, whether you want to go faster with a dry brush, or you want to go faster like what I'm doing, or you want to go accurate, hyper textured like he did, that's up to you, but we're going to go underneath like that. So with all that prep work finally out of the way, we're going to come back in with our contrast and continue on with the rest of, the rest of the skin and everything else, really. So here we're using Gulliman Flesh for his mouth, all of his mouth, because that'll give his teeth a really ferocious look, and all the webbing. So that's between his hands, his feet, and the fins on his back. Next up is Skeleton Horde for the claws, the barnacles, and the underneath fleshy part that we painted in to give it that underbelly look. You could do this with with the Gulliman flesh and give him like a fleshier look. I just thought that the yellow went really well with the blue, so I did it this way. When it comes to the claws, I did 2 or 3 coats of Skeleton Horde on these to really darken them down. You could instead do 1 coat of something like Snakebite Leather, but I wanted the more yellow tone to it, so I did a couple more coats of just Skeleton Horde on the claws. And then don't forget about the barnacles. You can do 1 or 2 coats on those. Here I did an orange, Griffhound orange for the starfish. I thought that because I chose this dark blue color, anything that was bright yellow warm, if you're following along with a color scheme like this. So that's why I chose that. Alright, extra touches coming back in. We're going to do some highlighting up. Wraithbone here on the barnacles, right? So we don't have to be too accurate here, but just get some paint on the tip of your brush and start poking. You don't have to hit every single one. Like I said, don't have to be clean in this one. If you get a little smooshy, it's fine. It's gonna look like they're bunched together. Like barnacles do that. They sort of eat into each other anyway, right? So don't have to be too accurate. We're gonna do the barnacles, the claws, the teeth, all kinds of stuff like that. Here you can see that I'm just doing the tops of the claws. We're not getting too crazy in depth. And then here we have these teeth. And while I'm trying to be precise, it doesn't work out that well on this guy. You can see that I actually get some in between the teeth, but that's fine. If we just swipe it across, no biggie. And that Gulliman flesh is going to actually carry us a lot of the way and give us lots of texture in there anyway. No big deal. Here we're using Yandan yellow, any kind of big yellow. Again, I'm using warm colors for this color scheme, but you can do the opposite if you have a different color scheme. So I'm using yellows and bright warm colors for these eyes. We're coming in with Wraithbone, and then on top our dollar store white, just to brighten it up. Nuln Oil for his little skirt thingy. It has a lot of texture in there, in the model, so that's kind of cool that I noticed, and we can follow that later when we're highlighting up. We can add some of that texture back in. Just go around with that Nuln Oil, and we're just going to darken it. Snakebite Leather here. Coming in for the belt.
Turn up the bass and let the trunk rattle.
And Gracier for our highlights. You can see I'm just using a little short swiping motion or stabbing motion, even just stippling in some cases. And that's just to keep in line with the texture that's already there. We want to keep some of that. We don't want to smush it over. We want to add to it. So that's why I'm doing that. Just go around and just swipe. You don't have to go too crazy. You can see I'm leaving big gaps of dark Nuln Oil shadow. And that's because it's going to give us lots of cool depth. I'm going to take a different approach to my weapons than usual. I'm going to coat this with Retributor armor first, no undercoat. Okay, and I know that here I forget the little handle part in front of his hand. I come back and do that again later, but just remember that when you're putting the gold down, to also get that little handle bit in front. So we're going to do the spiky part in the front, the spiky part in the back, the little handle bit, and this icon on his belt. Gonna come back in with our chrome, and immediately we're going to highlight up with chrome. You'll see why in a second. So go in and put all your spot highlights in with your chrome, all those brightest spots that you would do at the very end. You're doing them now. So just go over, pick those out. Now is the fun part, coming in with Militarum Green, and I was using it raw and then immediately realized that was a mistake and thinned it down. So a 1-to-1 mix of Militarum and water. just to get it sinking into the recesses and give it a really cool bronzy tint. And do that over the blade, the back, and the little emblem on the front. Black Templar, or any other dark color here for the shaft of his weapon. I chose Black Templar because I didn't want it to be distracting. I want everything else about the miniature to be where our attention goes to. Just a simple weapon here. And then we just go to our usual bottom basing technique of gray, texture paint, dry brush, shade, dry brush again. If you want to see in depth the colors and everything I use for those, check out any of the other videos for Hero Quest before this one. It's the same recipe. Okay, here we are, all finished. Look at that, really pops. Nice and bright color. Lots of little details and intricacies in there. Came out pretty cool. Really satisfied with that. Now remember, you can do any other colors you want. You don't have to do this blue. I have a little Magikarp looking guy right here. With a warmer color, see how that would look. Now in hindsight, these little starfish I would have done a different color. A cooler blue color would look nice. And there you have it. That's what the Sahuagin Abomination guys look like. All done up. Feel free to experiment and use your own kind of color scheme. What are you going to do? Let me know in the comments below kind of what you're going to do for these guys. Are you going to do them like the art and whatnot? Here we go. Trigger warning. If you got tryptophobia, maybe look away, skip ahead. These are the extra miniatures and they look kind of gnarly. So, you know, be warned, fair warning. The alternate sculpt is coming. Alright, here we go. The alternate sculpt using the same techniques. I just gave it these little purple tendrils, but everything else is the exact same as the blue guy that we did. You can see he's covered in all these little barnacles, and here, side by side, they're really similar, right? He's just got a bunch of barnacles and crazy stuff on him. Alright, that's that. If this was helpful to you, paints are up on the screen. Let me know in the comments below. Give me likes if you liked it. Give me thumbs down if you didn't like it. Let me know what you want to see coming up. We're almost done with the monsters. We're almost done with the heroes. I put a poll up. Check that out. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.